Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. Uniquely New Mexican, distinctly American, definitely built different by design. So, I've gained an audience on Rumble. That's where this is going. But it'll go up on my podcast too. My podcast can be found on all platforms if you're interested in podcasts. But some interesting developments happened this weekend about the pistol brace ban. So, two things to note about the pistol brace ban that are kind of scary as hell, and I don't know if it was done accidental. I'm not going to take the government for their word anymore. I firmly believe that it was done intentionally, both of which have the potential to make millions, yes, millions of people felons overnight. The first and foremost is if you go ahead and try to beat the system and register your item in the ATF to beat what they're pushing down, which isn't constitutional for the ban of the gun, and more specifically the brace, but they'll ban the gun because the gun's attached to the brace. Anyway, I digress. What they're trying to do with this, we all know, it's a registration. Well, if you go ahead and go through with this, and there is a default if it isn't approved in 88 days. And in 88 days, if they don't approve of it, what happens is you get denied. That makes you an instant felon. Like, the do not pass go, do not collect $200. You're a felon in possession of an NFA item and have willingly admitted to guilt by filing your form. And ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking the law. Many lawyers will tell you just shut up, don't say anything. Most of them will tell you learn before you do something, especially with a 2A. So that's why I say often that free men don't ask permission. The second thing, which is even more scary, there are a ton of like Draco pistols, MP5s, or MP5 clones, or HK clones, or any foreign-made, I don't know how else to put this, rifle actioned pistol? Does that make sense? Like an AK pistol, like an MP5 type pistol. Any of those scary assault pistols that they're so afraid of that they're going to go after anyway. Well, what they've also, not me, of course, Washington Gun Law covered this, but there's a lot of other gun tubers that have been out talking about this. What happens is there is no such thing as 922R in this bill. So if you put a brace on it and now you're in compliance with a short-barreled, you're now a short-barreled rifle, right? What that now means is that you would have to bring it up to 922R compliance to make it legal according to ATF parlance. Problem is, you can't do that. It gives you two remedies for anyone with a foreign-made pistol gun in this design after you've supposedly attached a brace to it. One is to surrender it to the ATF, and one is to destroy it. Both of those options suck. And that leads to millions. They've been selling pistol caliber or pistols in this type of configuration for years. You're making, the ATF would be making felons overnight, and there would be no remedy except for destroy this weapon, this piece of property you have, or turn it in. That's unacceptable. None of this was acceptable to begin with, but now it's looking like it's getting worse. So what do? Well, that's up to you. Me personally, I'm talking to lawyers. I'm talking to gun rights organizations. I'm supporting them. Case in point, Gun Owners of America has, and so does FPC. They have these little things on them that you can always add your name to a petition and talk to your reps, and they do all the work for you, but these are form letters. If I had one piece of advice, and I understand just filling out a form letter and sending it out, it still counts, but they're now trying to break that count up into weird numbers, like this was done by so-and-so people that sent this many form letters and all this other crap. It's more heartfelt and may land better with the reps. In New Mexico, this is where we're kind of hosed on the national level. Everyone else in New Mexico keeps voting for the blue all the time because they're afraid of having a Republican in after 70 years, and we've had Republicans in, to be fair, in one of these representative positions or senators' positions, and it really hasn't done anything to change it. But now, more than ever, we need some people to light up some soundboards or some phone boards. Specifically, we have 3 reps in New Mexico and 2 senators in New Mexico. That's according to what you would find in a civics class. That's what you would think most New Mexicans would understand. It's not necessarily the case. So, the 2 senators you need to talk to, Martin Heinrich, Ben Ray Lujan, Melanie Stansberry, Gabe Vasquez, and Teresa Ledger Fernandez. Now, send them emails, send them call their offices directly, light them up. Doesn't matter if they don't answer specifically your call, meaning that it's going to be probably one of their pages or someone in their office. Do this anyway because they have to log that count and it ties them up. And the more we make this uncomfortable for them, the more likely it's going to make them back down a little bit. Even these uber leftists that we have in Washington that represent New Mexico. So, how do you find your reps? Because in the next phase of what we're going to have to do as New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union or anyone in the 2A community, especially if you're in New Mexico, is you're going to need to find out who are our reps and what do they have to do with, what do we got to do to find them, how do we contact them, all that stuff. So, go to nmlegis.gov, nmlegis.gov, and when you get there, this is the New Mexico legislative place. This is where you find all the bills and all the fun stuff that you really hate because the government has no idea what the hell they're doing but taking away American freedoms, New Mexican freedoms. So what do I direct you here for? If you click on legislators, okay, find my legislator. Now you can do this by a number of ways. You can search by your address. So you put your address in, it'll start looking for it. If you know your district and all that stuff, you can look for that. If you can, their name specifically, you can look for it. Same for the Senate. And this is why I'm saying get a hold of them. Because we're early on in the session. The more painful you make it right now, the harder it's going to be for them to get to the things they want to get to. Which means that they're more likely to table said discussions. Specifically, they have a lot of things about qualified immunity that they want to get onto the books. They want to get more funding stuff, more funding streams for supposedly to get to K-12s. I believe that when I see it. Specifically, the funding usually hits them, but there's usually some sort of stupid mandate that goes along with it that pretty much erases it. Or they give raises to idiots that don't deserve raises. I say that only having worked there for 12 years in the district, in a K-12 district, I got 2 raises my entire life that I was there. Maybe 3. Maybe one of them was a cost of living adjustment. The rest of them were actually raises. The first one is when I took my position. The second one was last year before I quit. But get a hold of these guys. Start bending their ear about House Bill 50, which is the magazine ban. But more specifically, you should be pounding the hell out of them about House Bill 101 in the Senate, or in the House right now in New Mexico, in the Roundhouse. This is an assault weapons ban. They've also started going, the first Senate bills have hit the docket also, where they have 21 and over purchasing that they're trying to do in the state of New Mexico. This is already proven unconstitutional by multiple means. There's multiple means of case law that would say, no, you can't do this. The same with a lot of these bills in New Mexico. However, you have to understand, we've been infiltrated for a long time. And unless, like I said, you can bend the ears and win hearts and minds in the Rio Grande corridor, or you make this so egregiously painful that they're not going to get normal business done. And that's what we sadly have to do. And anyone who's been in the 2A community in New Mexico for the longest time knows that this is always a slog. And it gets to the point where there's a lot of people that are just tired of having to do this and no one to show up and back them up. So pay attention to New Mexico Shooting Sports Association. Pay attention to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. Check out ILA. As much as I hate the NRA is there more often than not when it comes to this stuff, if nothing else, to make a show and to make a vain effort. But as they're trying to win hearts and minds back themselves from people like me who despise them for always constantly throwing us under the bus when it comes to the Second Amendment, maybe, just maybe, they'll help us out with some of these things. There's a lot of bad stuff coming. I think what's going to go, if I had to use a crystal ball right now to predict what they're going to try to settle on and pass, and that the sheriffs, because they laid down during COVID. They usually don't with gun rights, but they lost the last one because other people in law enforcement, specifically, as I've said before, the chief of police in Albuquerque rolled us over in the clover. So don't expect law enforcement to be much help. I hope that I'm wrong. I really do hope I'm wrong. I really do believe in law enforcement are used to until they tried to oppress us or they aided in the oppression of the American people, New Mexicans specifically. We're still living under this iron boot. And the sooner we can end any power or give any power to the government, they take it and run with it and use it against us. And if you don't believe me, look what happened to New Mexican jobs. Look to what happened to New Mexico school progress. Look at graduation rates. We lost thousands of kids in the system because they have no clue where the hell they went. Odds are they moved or they went to private schools that don't have to report to state because they're total different entities that don't have to report to their STARS data. That's what that's called, state reporting stuff. What happens with that, though, is think about that. We lost how many thousands of New Mexican students during the COVID stuff? Enrollment's down across the board. Enrollment in Aztec specifically was getting up, but it was down from where it was. And that's everywhere. Why did that happen? Where did these kids go? How many kids killed themselves because they didn't get to interact with anybody else? You know, how many? I really would like to know the stats on how many red flag laws were passed or used to take guns off the street, because I don't think it was ever used. It was probably an added thing. I'd also like to know, of those gun crimes that are perpetrated in New Mexico, how many of them were done with legally obtained guns, where these people had passed background checks? Because anyone that passed a background check that shows that it didn't work, right? If the criminal still perpetrated all this stuff, the background check didn't stop them, or even if the gun is stolen, it didn't stop anybody. None of this stuff does. We need to be very, very cognizant of where we are in the community. Right now, if you look at YouTube, Mr. Guns and Gear was censored on YouTube. He's now trying to pop up on Rumble just like everyone else in the GunTube world to try to cushion themselves. But our audience, or their audience, my audience has always been on Rumble because I've never done anything other than Rumble or podcast because I knew YouTube was kind of communist. Anyway, they've been censored there. They've had to drop ship and move to Rumble, which isn't a bad platform, which isn't a bad alternative. They just need to spread the word. We all need to spread the word. But if they're willing to censor these guys, why? Why do we keep seeing these idiots shooting things and being magnified on the news, on the national media? It isn't because these guns are any more prevalent than they were. We have a mental health problem that is very, very big right now, and no one's talking about it, and it's spilling over into a lot of ways. As the economy tanks, these people have no out. I understand. I'm trying to find a job right now myself before I start my business. But you know what? I keep grinding. I keep doing something. Podcasting has kept my mind occupied while I'm getting ready for my new business. Like, share, subscribe, be great.